subject here, namely economy 4.0, it is divided into stages, namely economy 1.0, 2, now 4. But when we look at how leadership developed in this time, well, we can refer in the same way here, because leadership until the 70s of the last century was, in terms of paradigms, a classical one. This tells us that, in principle, two industrial revolutions basically took place within the same trend in terms of leadership. Then leadership was shaping in a way that the governance, the management, mostly governance, had its origin in was rooted in somebody's position, somebody's family roots, and in this way it allowed for conducting companies. So the economies 1.0, 2.0 in this kind of trend took effect. Then we had something new in leadership. These were basically the times from 70s to 80s of the last century. Namely, these were transformational leadership. And then we started to deal. So, for example, I'm the boss of an organization. I deal with people within the organization, so maybe it's worth doing something together. Maybe it's worth listening to your voice, because that would overlap into implementations of some solutions. And this is what I perceive in practice in business. Namely, people participate too little in solutions that then are implemented within the organization. Of course, some solutions are at a strategic level, and they need to be implemented from the strategic viewpoints, but if people below that level do not understand, those will never work. The communication will be poor, and then we know that the leader is also poor, because he or she needs to communicate it so that a given solution is properly implemented, avoiding just empty slogans. We implemented such solutions in Poland, Spain, the USA. And my experience is such: communication is key to make things work. Then we had the so-called visionary perspective from the 80s to the late noughties of this century. So we have this visionary movement, and this overlaps with what's going on now in our economy, because the economy 3.0 is taking effect. So something's going on. So there are three revolutions that overlap the three paradigms in leadership. And then we've got the year of 2000. Something special happens. We observe that leadership starts getting something different, a different view. It becomes more relational. We start talking to each other. We start building organizations in a different way, not just in a directive way or authoritarian. But we start negotiating, compromising. We've got this kind of organic approach where the organization pays attention to communication. And this is crucial to economy 4.0, because something new is starting, because we are starting to communicate in the network online. This relates to our private life, professional life. Social media dictates different conditions and creates different impacts on a business environment. It becomes an interesting form of advertisement. We start integrating, but not face-to-face, not offline, but in an online way. So we create a society. In marketing, this is the so-called social marketing that dictates special conditions, but also in leadership and in management, the situation looks different. So the subject of my presentation is the challenges. I think I'm a bit lost in my presentation, but I want to talk about them. So the mainstream of my presentation is what are the challenges in economy 4.0 in terms of leaders. It's not stagnation. Because if we take those two trends connected with economy and the development of leadership, we see some kind of regularity. This regularity is connected with time, with speediness. In the past, business cycles were much longer. Now they are much shorter. In the past, you could stay from the beginning of the world till the 70s and be in this classical stream of leadership. Now it's not working. So the speed of change of information, what's coming into the organization, and the speed of the world going on is totally changing the way organizations are functioning. So leaders face at least 5 challenges where I will highlight on one. So the first characteristic challenge, characteristic of economy 4.0, is that we want it to be socially good. Leaders conducting their organizations require social impact, because that's the global impact. We need to make it good, because everybody, if it's not, then everybody will know it, and they will start putting forward negative contents towards us. So leaders firstly need to conduct an organization so that it is directed towards good effects, which is not easy, because mostly what is socially accepted doesn't have to be good for the organization. So the leader must be aware of that. Leaders need to go through different stages of consciousness. So first, conducting an organization in a socially good way. The origins of it, there were some CSR practices talking about the corporate responsibility of organizations, but now it is really impacting what's going on. The second challenge is the technology. Well, we know that technologies have always been developing very fast. That's the characteristic of the market. So technology develops faster than an organization. That's why an organization needs to keep pace with those changes. So here we can talk about the so-called generation gap here. Well, my generation, I'm 50. I'm a child of those people who were after the population after the war. So I'm the baby boomer. So I perceive the world completely differently than a person who is born in 2000. So, you know, Generation Z. But Generation Z is going to be the main driving force in terms of organizations. They have a completely different perspective of the world. When I'm at a university, for example, in the USA, because I'm conducting business there, when I went to lectures there, I took a hoodie, I put on trainers so that students wanted to listen to me, because they have a different perspective. So, well, we've got cultural differences, but also the generational difference. That impact is magical, because these people are going to feed the organizations, and they're going to talk to me, hey, what are you talking about? You're an old man. You say that I have to do something? I don't have to do anything. So the communication is much different. I was brought up in times when the CEO said, tomorrow you're coming with Santa's hat on. I just asked which side the pompon should be on. So I never questioned somebody's decisions. So managers who learned old techniques and they do not take a step towards development, they come to a standstill. Organizations are lagging behind. So this is important. Strategic thinking is also very important. Well, in the past, we were doing that for a very long time, or even longer, if the company looked forward. other companies, the ones that didn't notice the difference, like, you know, the digital camera companies, well, the traditional companies, in that sense, photographic companies, did not succeed, because it's not only about long term, it's rather focused on a task, on an objective. So this is a challenge in many organizations, a huge one, because it's not only about how I'm going to achieve my success, the success of my company, but I need to analyze what's going on now, how to create teams. So another challenge here is the young generation of employees. For example, Deloitte made research in that respect, namely in talent management. How can I talk to this person if I'm in a completely different dimension than the so-called talent, because I don't see this talent? This is very important, because when we do not notice those talents, somebody else will, and will strengthen his or her organization. Although we can strengthen the organization that we conduct. So talent management is a huge thing if we want to do it in an effective way so that the organization develops. And the last thing that I'm going to talk about now is characteristic of leadership from the very beginning of the world till its end, the ego. The leader's ego. If the leader is not open-minded and does not pay attention to what's going on in the world and does not pay attention to the things that worked in the past but now not, then they cannot make an impact. Leaders create some kind of ceiling in an organization. If we took a scale, for example, the leader is at the 4th level, the organization will not go higher than level 4, even lower, up to the 3rd level. Why is it happening? Because the leader is either the brake or the drive. We can talk about teams, but it is always somebody who drives the vehicle. So in organizations, somebody takes responsibility. Of course, we've got project work and we are more responsible for specific areas in the organization, but still this is the responsibility for delivering an objective. So a leader is a person. Leadership is relation. So in some kind of context, there are always some opponents and there are some supporters. Well, depending on the leader, they either support him or not. So this is the fact. So what kind of ego a leader? The leader's ego is of tremendous importance for the organization. If his ego does not allow him to look at an organization in a specific way, those levels do not happen, because there won't be talent management. There won't be strategic thinking, because such a leader says, my strategy is the company's strategy, and nor will there be any looking into technologies and monitoring, because such a person thinks that what happened 20 years ago had great results. I have a business mentor, and he always says to me, well, Andre, you are worth what you've done yesterday, not 20 years ago. That's the dynamic of the world. And now we have a special kind of model that is developed. I cannot show it to you. This is a geometric figure. It's the so-called leadership IPQ. It is composed of 4 elements, the fundamentals, regardless of the trends. Of course, we know that economy 4.0 goes into machine communication to some extent. But there's always a human being. Until human brain is working, people's brains, well, they do create machines. I need to finish almost. Give me 3 minutes. 4 elements in terms of leadership APQ. So the fundamentals, also the human is in the center, there is time, there are principles, there is action, and values. So regardless of where we are, there must always be some values. The model was checked in many organizations, business, NGOs, and even criminal organizations, and it works. So it is verified in many different ways. So we've got the foundation. 3 more areas, consciousness levels of the leader, and now I have to say it, because it's my life experience. You know, I visit prisoners. Some people say that I look like the one who's there. Well, that's my duty. I've got my business and I've got duty, and I also talk to prisoners, and I even rehabilitated some of them. What I noticed in 2018, I went to the USA to create my business. In that year, well, I'm smiling because somebody might say that probably I had a terrorist group. But there were 30 people who once were in prison. Well, they went to prisons with me and they say, I want to serve the other people in the prisons so that they can rehabilitate. So in 2018, I'm going to the USA. I come back. I'm there. And I see that the organization is working in a worse way. Everybody is calling me in Poland, please, Andrzej, visit us again. And I got to know that it wasn't the organization that I created up to the level that I wanted. In that organization, I was the king. When I left my organization, the organization got dispersed. So here we've got this leader consciousness. The 8th level is the highest, the top one, and I had the opportunity to work with such people. This is the level where you know that leadership allows you to build something greater than you are yourself. If the leader can lead a company without, implement DNA principles, whether he is there or he is not, the organization will develop. So these are consciousness levels. And the last field is the competency area. It's a gun is not enough. I need to be a leader in order to be effective. What does it mean? We need to build competences both at strategic and operational levels. There are 8 of them. They are divided by the so-called organizational culture. And we know that we visit an organization, there are wonderful slogans, but we talk to the people and we do not see those slogans in practice. This means that organizational culture is something completely different than what they are talking about. And the last part of this model, these are tools. In the past, we had a stick, a pole. We had completely different things what we are now because our consciousness levels are different. The level in the structure is also structural levels are also different. Probably they're going to be horizontal, but still there is some kind of verticality there. So wherever we are in an organization, we use appropriate tools. And with this, I want to thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for this very inspiring presentation. Do we need a minute? We have some technical issues, I'm sorry. We need a couple of minutes to take a deeper breath, and soon I will invite to the floor Mr. Adam Zdanowicz. You know, the title is very interesting, The Story of a Prince with a Bicycle, the pros and cons of being an avatar. Yeah, the story of a prince with a bicycle, a bike. Yeah, we're going to talk about bicycles, not just about the prince.
To się wszystko zgadza. Nasza konferencja jest transmitowana, stąd też te aspekty techniczne są tak istotne. Zapraszamy bardzo.
So please take the floor. And I would like you to stand here at this spot so that you can see me, we can see you well. Okay, so I will look at my watch. Let me go to the computer. I have a question.
Dziękuję. Dzień dobry.
Everybody, thank you for giving me a chance to be here. My name is Adam Zdanowicz. So my business are custom bikes. So these are the bikes that are made per individual order. So I have been doing it for 9 years professionally. First it was just a hobby and then I turned it into business. I am the president of a foundation also, and I try to make people's dream come true, but also connected with bikes. So if you have never heard about me before, I prepared a short film so that you know what we're doing.
Okay. Understand.
I'll try. This is me in my workshop because it's an arranged that is my workplace. Here, this part of the conference refers to digitization, marketing, and changes, and I have realized an important You see this beautiful workshop, and that's how people see me, how my mother sees me, my parents, that I am this designer, nonchalant, extravagant, and I have this bike workshop. That's what the media sees me like. The people, the outsiders who just judge me based on my achievements. I have the Grand Prix in Las Vegas for the Golden Bike. So the winner that goes in front of people who went to the USA, brought a trophy, who's the best. Another avatar is the one that girls see. So the picture speaks for itself. It's a person who has a certain ego, who represents something, who tries to achieve something like, American dream for some people. That's what my friends see. So that's the guy who has a golden bike, who has girls around him, who is in Las Vegas all the time. Whenever I meet my friends, they ask me, so where have you been? Where are you coming from? And I don't want to say that I'm coming back from the garage or the workshop, but it's often true. But sometimes I'm just back from Dubai or Las Vegas. That's what my employees see me. The branding list of to-dos, and inside I see myself like that. So lots of things to do, lots of matters to solve, meetings, conferences, private meetings, projects, and whatever. But inside, I'm a rock and roll man. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this exciting presentation. I think I should mute myself. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we need a great courage to say something about your inside. In a moment we're going to listen to the online virtual presentation delivered by Dr. Beata Gottwald, representing University of Łódź. Please keep to the time.
Oddajemy pani głos.
Thank you very much, Mr. Professor. Thank you very much for the organization, for creating such a possibility to exchange the idea on the new economy. I'm sure I'm going to change something because I can constantly hear the translator. Okay, now it works. I hope that I can ask you for support while turning on the presentation because it would develop a little bit my presentation. So basically today I wanted to share with you the idea that is developed since 2015, I suppose, although it is pretty much known also from the previous years. The concept of customer education. Might I ask for the slide, please? If it works, I will be grateful for the information. I think that there are some technical issues. But I'll try without the presentation for now. So basically, as the concept of new economy developed in time, we started with understanding the new economy as the phenomena that is related to two basic things. The first one, it is the knowledge and the learning organizations, those which are open for the knowledge transfer, and those which are open for creating the space to teach and to learn together, to grow as people, as employees, and also as, oh, thank you very much. Might we switch to the next one, please? Thank you very much. Great. Now it works perfectly. So the concept of new economy developed, as I said, from the growth of knowledge and the role of information, the data, which was also stressed during yesterday's presentations, but also due to technological changes that surround customers. Along with the pandemics, which was unseen by anyone in 2015, especially at the scale of it, we started speaking about the new normality, the state where we understand the risk related to the COVID-19, but not only this one, also the other diseases potentially present here. And the new normality appeared when, can I ask for the previous slide, please? Thank you very much. And we noticed some changes that we suppose are going to stay with us in the nearest future. So the first trend that you can see on the left-hand side, it is the trend that more and more customers start buying and start purchasing products. It is irrelevant if this is the product, physical product, or this is a service via internet. Secondly, the omni-channel as itself is growing, although some people speak about mono-channeling and going to online world more than to the omni-channel, but I'm going to reflect on it in the later part. And another thing that is important as the background for the development of customer education, it is the fact that most of the customers, it is 75% of customers who grew new purchasing habits, who were familiar with the digital world, declare that they hope to continue their behaviors in the nearest future. So for us as the marketers, enterprises, and also organizations broadly defined, social or non-profit organizations also, this is the trend that it is good to be, which is good to be known. Thank you. Can I ask for the next slide, please? Thank you. Along with the development of the understanding of the surrounding world, we are trying to adjust to the new reality, and we are trying to create some new things, solutions, models that would be adequate for the new reality that appeared around us. One of the frameworks that was created by Conrado Etterson was the framework of a SAFE model. It is actually the reflection of 4P understood in a more virtual way. So first of all, we are not speaking about the product itself. We are speaking rather about something that solves the problem. And for that reason, we have the name solution instead of product. Additionally, we are trying to reflect here that design thinking and designing the solutions is a part of the idea here. The other element is the access, which reflects the idea that some products are not physical anymore, and for that reason, we don't need to get them delivered, we need to get them through the access. Additionally, there are different models of purchasing products, for example, the freemium models, which is also visible in the value context. Customers are trying to purchase something that is not always tangible in terms of the quotas, and for that reason, value is a more appropriate term in terms of virtual world. And the fourth element, which in the SAFE model was supposed to stand instead of promotion, and here I'm going to reflect on that in the next part, it is the education. Some products that are offered, or solutions as you prefer, that are presented or offered to the customers in the virtual world are pretty complex ones. And it is crucial for the offerers to be sure that customers understand the product and they are able to use it as good as possible. And for that reason, the education appeared here as a part of the marketing mix composition. Might I ask for the next slide, please? Thank you very much. In terms of the appearance of customer education itself in the scientific presentations or scientific discourse, it is a pretty new issue, and for that reason I started presenting it from 2015. Of course, it was seen also earlier, but from 2015 we can see the growth of interest. In 2014 it was around few or 30 to 90 pieces of publications, and in 2015 we can see the explosion of interest in the field. And as we look at the chart, we can see that the interest is pretty steady, stable, or growing. Can I ask for the next one, please? Thank you very much. So the concept of customer education is also related to the way how we understand the customer education itself. Some people believe that customer education, it is nothing else but something that was placed instead of promotion or instead of communication. The others believe that this is a part of something bigger. So this is the part of the strategy, either marketing strategy or the customer education strategy, depending on the moment of development of the concept in the organization. And some people think that customer education, it is nothing else but a tool for customer relationship management. When you look at the pictures, you would see some examples of the customer education. The first one, it is the example from IKEA, and this is nothing else but the instruction, but created in a pretty interesting way. As we spoke also yesterday, a picture is worth more than 1,000 words, and IKEA understood perfectly, and for that reason they created some kind of whole philosophy of educating customers and preparing them for consumption of the products. The other companies that are presented here are, for example, Sales Manago, not mentioned Freshmail or Google, which created the academies or databases to prepare customers to consume products in a steady way. So they understand that the more customers know about the offer, they will try to explore it deeper. And here, I suppose, this is the moment where we can touch the whole philosophy of the customer education. It is offered not only to teach customers how to use the products, it is used to build the relationship, steady relationship with customer, and to prepare him or her for deepening the relationship, co-creation, or the other concepts that are visible in the marketing discourse. It is good to think about the other examples. For example, the HubSpot Academy, which was created initially for B2B market. So they had some kind of solutions that they wanted to serve, to offer the other companies and to help them grow. But as they developed, as they looked at their customers, they noticed that it is not only important to teach the companies themselves, but it's very good to look at the companies from the perspective of the individual people. And they changed the whole idea, the whole philosophy of the academy, thinking about the B2C market. And here, this is also good to see that the academies that we create in the companies also change or grow as the concept works. The other example is the Marsh District, which is placed in Toronto, because they reflect their philosophy in the vision. So we help innovators change the world, although they only offer some courses for people. They show that the main aim it is to change the world alongside or together with their customers. And I believe that this is the brilliant way to see that customer education is created to help customers and to help the company accomplish the goals together. So here we try to invite the customers to change something, to build something together with us. When we look at the engagement into the process and the common goal, we can also believe that this deepens the relationship between parties involved. One example that is left on the right-hand side in the lower corner of the presentation, this is the Mitsubishi brand. Personally, I'm a fan, and for that reason, I decided to put it here. This is the example of customer education working at the highest possible level. So this is customer-to-customer education. And although the brand is present there, and sometimes people who answer the questions, I think they are the employees of the brand, this is not the goal of the forum. At the forum or during the meetings, customers exchange ideas and they exchange knowledge. And together they grow around the brand. So I believe that this might be the last stage of the customer education development. One issue that I wanted to focus on is the customer onboarding process and the role of customer education in the process and why it's important. Some companies think that, might we go back for a moment? Thank you very much. Some companies believe that the customer education, this is the only tool to help customers to learn what they have to do with the product, and this is it. Here the role of the academy instruction ends. But apart from the onboarding, it is also the whole spectrum of the relationship management and building relations with the customers. And in here, I believe the role of customer education is crucial. Might I ask for the next slide, please? Thank you very much. I wanted to present you the concept theoretical framework for customer education. Of course, I am aware that this is not a very broad one and it requires the deeper analysis, but I wanted to share with you the idea to be also open for discussion and to learn what your ideas on the concept are. The framework was inspired by the HubSpot Academy and their attitude to the development of customer education courses. At the first stage, they decided to analyze the environment, and I believe this is also the same in terms of marketing activities or business activities, anything. Within the analytics phase, we need to analyze the whole marketing mix, or it is irrelevant which model you choose, 4P, 20P, or the SAFe model. We also analyze the user's profile to be able to deliver the offer of customer education in the most appropriate way. And we have to think about the resources required. On the contrary to some kind of intuitive understanding of the new strategy or concept development, customer education programs don't need to be very costly at the very beginning. At the very beginning, you need to focus on delivering the information and delivering the relationship, which is the most adequate in this particular situation. You are those who understand the customers the best because you are the closest to the markets. I'm addressing now not only the enterprises, but also the teachers, the academic teachers, professors. We understand who our customers are, and for that reason, we, I think, can empathize with them, and we know which resources are totally required and which one are optional. It is also always good to have the wish list, which things we would like to create in the future. But COVID-19 showed us that we are able to deliver the offer, even if we don't have very much knowledge and experience in terms of, for example, online teaching. And it was the same with the academies in HubSpot or in Google. They had the resources that they decided to use, but they focused primarily on those skills that were crucial for them and crucial for their customers. They showed that if customers decide to grow together with them, then the companies are open to help them in fulfilling their needs. In the second stage, we try to design the solution. We try to think about how and why and what we want to do in the next stage. And we need to remember about the chance for scaling the product. It was reflected also in the discussions yesterday that scaling the business, scaling the solutions is crucial for the future. The third stage is actually the implementation or the development of the solution. Why I'm speaking about it together? Because the development, it is the moment when you still test the solution, when you try which things work the best and you try to focus on them. In the development stage, we need to focus our attention on the KPIs and the relationship between our goals and the goals of the customers, but not only our goals as the department or as the whole company, but also as the relation between our goals and the goals of the customers. It is very good to remember, for example, how Google did it, because Google offers us the solution that we pay for example, for paid advertising. On the one hand side, we pay for the offer, and this is pretty obvious. On the other hand side, we also benefit from the offer, and this is the value delivered, I suppose, higher than the cost paid for the solution. In the implementation phase, it is crucial to remember that the development of the growth of the customer education program or the growth of customer education strategy should be related to two basic things. The first one, it is the development of the offer itself. So we need to grow the academy. If you decide to do it, then you have to follow this. Of course, thinking about the positive feedback from the customers. In parallel, we have to remember that the offer of us, of the companies, also change. And for that reason, the customer education should also evolve together with the evolution of the offer that we have, basically. Can I ask for the next slide, please? Of course, there are a lot of limitations related to the model. First of all, this is the concept and theoretical one. There were no in-depth analysis on this particular model. And while we are thinking about the other researchers, then they were mostly qualitative. And for that reason, we have to look at it with some kind of sorry, I forgot the word. We need to be cautious while thinking about it. Additionally, due to the shortening of the product life cycles, the customer academies are very vivid solutions. And we have to know that we need to engage in it if we created it. It is the same as in social media. It is not enough to create a Facebook profile. It is crucial to develop it and to work on that. Another challenge related to the model, it is the development of channels of marketing communication and the development of tools which we use to communicate with customers. Today, we are living in the reality where this is the omni-channel solutions, where we use more than one channel to communicate, to deliver the offer, or customers use more than one channel to get the information or to satisfy their needs. On the other hand, we are thinking about those who intentionally decide to resign from online environment and decide to live in the physical world only.
Pani doktor, zachęcamy już do Pani doktor, zachęcamy do
Please, could you start conclusions?
The users of customer educational programs, for example, in the market of machine-to-machine learning. And the last, may I have one more minute, please, and the previous slide, please.
Pani doktor, zachęcamy już do sformułowania wniosków.
Reflect on it is the perception of the role of marketing in the organizations, because they are the organizations which believe that marketing's role it is to bind together all the functions of the enterprise. The others believe that the role of marketing it is only to push the sales. And depending on the way how we understand the marketing and how we understand the communication, how much we want to involve in building relationship with customers, it is also going to be reflected in the way how we understand marketing education, customer education, and if we want to develop it in the future. The last slide, please. I wanted to thank you very much for your attention, for the invitation to the conference, and for the amazing agility that I had the pleasure of having there. Thank you very much. If you have any further questions or remarks, you have my email. I will be grateful for the contact. Thank you very much.
Dziękujemy pani doktor.
About omnichannel in FMCG retail as a method of gaining competitive.
Dziękuję bardzo. Witam.
My name is Andrzej Kondej. I represent the Institute of Management in Białystok. My colleagues who are organizing this conference have put the bar very Andrzej goes in and out prisons with no problem. Adam made me feel bad about my hair, even worse than I already do. Then the last speaker made me realize that my English is not as fluent as I would like it to be. I'll try to keep up. So omnichannel. Why this topic? Well, that's because I have been interested in trade for more than a dozen years. When I got into the shop, I forgot what I came for, but I start analyzing, the arrangements inside the shop of the goods and so on. And that's my scientific field also, but also in terms of practice. First, well, I'm looking at Professor, and I'm wondering if she's keeping the time, yes? Okay, I can see the clock, okay. I will try to be disciplined. So, offline versus online trade. So, in the literature of the subject, scientific literature, there has been this dominating topic, offline versus online trade. Which one is dominating? Of course, online shows more dynamics and is very successful, maybe not in all areas. In the food industry, a lot of people introduced online solutions that they had to stop that. We are talking about cannibalism, joining, combining offline and online trade, and so on. On those pictures, you can see a certain combination. Transferring from one form to another, it can be different. Sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not. I am deeply convinced that this kind of division, black and white division, is an artificial one. It's not realistic. And that defines from the very definition of trade. It's a set of different activities. as a result of which consumers, clients buy certain product or service. And it also results from the fact that this set of activities are the contact moments, points with the customer. And whatever we list, whatever points we list, some of those points are more offline, and it refers to delivery, the pickup, because we can collect things from post box machines like the one by InPost, or from shops or post office and so on. So there are a lot of options at each stage of this process. Hundreds of different possibilities, in fact. Not all of them are being used, in fact. We have had the term hybrid trade. Now, we know that there are hybrid vehicles, there are hybrid conferences. Why not trade? Why not sale? This is a certain combination of online and offline trade. There's a lot of research which indicates that consumers are not willing to give up the traditional formula. Of course, it's connected with age to some point, but there's also a study which shows that 65% of buyers want to be served offline, so in brick-and-mortar shops. I will not bore you with definitions, what omnichannel is. I'm sure we all know more or less. I wanted to draw your attention to integration of marketing activities. Omnichannel, this is not a combination of online and offline trade, but it's a new quality. So it's not like offline competes with online. It's still so in many companies, but that should not be the case. I think that I should say that the decisive voice belongs to buyers, to customers, and in fact, they are not interested in whether it's internet, phone, or other form of contact, but what they care about is the speed, the quality of service, the security. So if Max from Orange can talk to me, I am his friend. I talked to Max yesterday, an avatar really from Orange. So competitive advantage that can be obtained by companies thanks to omnichannel are certain. There's no doubt about it. I think we have such examples on the market. I don't want to promote Żabka company, but I think it's the leader. I heard also that hot dogs are made and served using omnichannel. So getting to the mainstream of consumers is the most important, and they expect quality, comfort, fast pace, and they are really not fans of nano shops with no service. So I am listing here several technological solutions regarding the omnichannel. So it can be the question of display using augmented reality, some additional apps, thanks to which we can get information about products. This can be a new way of delivering products, of collecting products, like Castorama, who have their own post box machines where people can collect their products, their purchases 24/7. It's hard to introduce an omni-channel formula without some complex solutions, like customer management or ERP. I am really a great fan of all kinds of combined solutions, so like augmented reality combined with Realia. And final conclusions. I think my timekeeping is good. Yeah, thank you. Just let me say the final conclusions. So the introduction of omni-channel cannot consist of introducing a single element. It has to be a complex, comprehensive formula. And it's often connected with the general transformation of the company. So strategic management, that's what we do on an everyday basis, must be applied. So planning a total transformation of the company in a certain time perspective, because it cannot be done like in 2 or 3 months, but more like 3 to 5 years. I wrote thank you very much at the end. I didn't know if there will be somebody here to thank too. I don't know if I managed to draw your attention. I didn't know who would be in front of me, but now I can say thank you very much. Thank you for listening carefully, and I'm happy that nobody fell asleep while I was talking, even at the row. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for this presentation. We are still in the omni-channel reality, and I invite Mr. Marcin Rutkowski to the floor.
Tak.
Well, this is my presentation. Hello everyone, my name is Marcin Rutkowski. According to the plan, I've got 14 seconds. I hope to keep this time. And the subject of my presentation for today that I chose to get with Dr. Marek Kruk, who is a friend of many people, a recommended value chain in omni-channel reality. The first thing is the value chain. Well, for my presentation, I took Porter's model of value chain. And I would like to know how in omni-channel reality, namely today's reality, this value model is looks like and is working. The question is, does it function at all now? Yesterday, I had an idea that the Samash company could be put into this framework and show it, because the company originated when we had Industry 3.0 and we've got Industry 4.0 now. So it is a great example to show this scale of revolution, of transformation. In 2005, Samash bought the first laser. Now we've got the year 2022 and everything's laserized. And then I want to take this kind of approach to this subject. In terms of omnichannel, I love this subject. In terms of classical marketing sales models, well, there are many things that I never liked. I never liked walking around shops and being nagged by shop assistants. I always took my tablet, made a choice and make a transaction. That is why I believe that this is the future. Omnichannel is not for everyone. The first thing is that if we have a franchise and those franchise contracts are concluded in such a way that omnichannel strategy cannot be used now because somebody foreign is going to serve our customers, and here we risk cannibalism in that sense. But of course, it is the future, and those companies that are existing, that are emerging, should pay attention to this fact. So this is it when it comes to this subject, but I would like to refer to two issues. I don't like comparisons of the sort that the computer machine computes 100 faster than a human. Let it compute even more faster. Of course, I'm not going to lift many weights. I'm not going to compute in the fastest possible way. This is irrational thinking. When I listened to a representative of the ministry, and he said that artificial intelligence will never come to light. When I watched sci-fi films, I hope that it wouldn't.
Thank you very much. So we're moving to elderly people, and we're going to talk about preventing the digital exclusion of older people. Professor Koczur from University of Economics in Katowice. Well, it may seem that it's not connected with marketing so much. That's the main topic of our session. However, very important group of customers that should be paid attention to. So, Professor, please, the floor is yours. So, ladies and gentlemen, referring to a presentation by Adam Zdanowicz, I would say I'm not a prince, but I'm from a different fairy tale than the speakers in this panel. And in fact, I don't know why I'm in this panel, in this session, but I'm glad to be here. I heard a lot of interesting, inspiring things. I represent an interdisciplinary team, experts from management, IT, finances, etc. And we're doing a project that's devoted to prevention of digital exclusion of seniors. And as you may know from the media, it is one of important topics, social problems in Poland. And I will maybe skip some issues because there is a little time. But I want to say that especially during the pandemic, it became obvious that Poland differs from the rest of the European Union as regards, as far as ICT technologies use is concerned. It appears that digital exclusion has the face of a senior, so to say. The first slide that you can see shows the percentage of households with access to the internet. That's the newest data. And even though we have seen an improvement recently, we are still on the 15th place in the EU. And that's an important indicator because until recently, this social issue was studied in the following way. So this digital divide, digital deprivation was understood as the situation that somebody does not have access to the internet for economic reasons or infrastructural reasons, but this approach has evolved, and right now this problem is seen differently. Now we take into account here the people who do not use technologies, ICT technologies, but the reasons can be very different, not only infrastructural, technical reasons. Now again, here, look at this chart, which looks sad. I mean, our position of our country in the EU. Here it's the percentage of internet non-users, people who have never used the internet, and we're still at the top, the seventh place. So it's a disgrace, actually, for us. And the last slide with statistics, it shows the percentage of people using the internet to access public administration services, and see how low it is in our country. And we know what happened in this area, digitization of public administration during the recent pandemic times. Surprisingly, we can say, referring to the Polish legislation and the way the problem is seen, in fact, all those programs, inclusive programs that are later implemented, they are based on particular regulations of particular legal acts. So, in a normative sense, the problem has been was observed, was noticed a long time ago, in the late 1990s, and in many areas of social life, it's the same, that there is theory, there is law, but in practice, not much happens. And you can see it from the statistics that you've seen. We're talking about the digital divide that affects elderly people, and we have a fundamental question: who are elderly people, who are seniors? So it appears that both international and national law, all kinds of hard and soft law, this topic is not shown in the same way, not treated in the same.
Do takich dodatkowych, że chyba, że to będzie, że jako podłączy mnie mój adres mailowy, dostanę tylko linku, tylko że...
Czy ja też dostałem te linki? Halo, mówi się.
So I was saying that we don't have like one definition of an elderly person, which can be, surprising, but that's the truth. And we can see it both in international and Polish law. So in Polish regulations, such as all the regulations referring to seniors, that are the basis for senior policies, also the policies aimed at the prevention of digital exclusion. So the elderly is somebody who is 60 years or older. Why, you could ask? The answer is simple: because that was the recommendation of the World Health Organization. But as you noticed in our public statistics, seniors are also the people like 55 plus. But from the point of view of those inclusive programs, whose aim is to prevent digital exclusion of seniors, the official definition is 60 plus. The problem with seniors is that, as you can see in this age pyramid, the demographic aging process of our country is very advanced, and it's unfortunately very dynamic. So soon we will be one of the oldest nations in Europe. I want you to notice one more thing, which is not often mentioned. We have different dynamics of this process of demographic aging in different regions. So I think it's not a good idea to create one universal program, policy, addressed to the total population in this category. We should rather have some regional strategies in this respect and I will come back to this regarding in the context of our research project. Here you have the continuation of the illustration of what I talked about before. I will maybe skip it. This slide and the next one, which I will show just for a very short time, they confirm what was mentioned before, so that the digitization processes in public administration in the recent years were very dynamic, and that did not translate into adequate usage of those possibilities that were created by seniors. So, social services. We're coming here to a thing that we cannot be proud of. There is a lot of normative problems with defining social services. So different acts define social services in different ways. I'm showing here an example only of two very different legal regulations regarding the same issue. So social services are understood in a different way in social laws, like the Act on Social Assistance Services, and social services are defined differently in administrative law or trade law, commercial regulations. In good, well-functioning legal systems, it's usually like that when we have one name, it means the same thing. But we seem to be having problems with that. We can say that a little excuse or consolation for some could be that also in the case of EU regulations, this problem exists. So there are discrepancies between the definition and classification of social services. Between different EU regulations and the directive of the Parliament that I am quoting here. So, for instance, in this directive, there are 15 different categories of social services, and some of them are not the ones we usually associate with this term. So, what about our project? What would we like to contribute? typical model of solutions that could be implemented by the local government, because for the reasons that I presented here, I'm not going to repeat them, it's not like with one law, with one legal act applicable to the whole Poland, we can solve this important problem. I hope that there will be an opportunity maybe soon to present the continuation of this project, so the results of the second stage of our research. Right now, I have to say that we are concerned by the fact that already on this legislative level, we notice so many problems like gaps, inconsequences, contradictions even between different regulations. To sum up, anyway, regardless of how we conduct the project, there is a great challenge in front of our country as far as the prevention of digital exclusion of seniors is concerned, because other countries have managed to cope with this problem much better. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Niebieski pendrive, a mi pan go dawał? To koleżanka. Ja bardzo chętnie pomógł, ale niestety nie. No? To był ten ostatni pan. Coś tam się pozmieniało. Więc tak, wszystko zaczęło wyglądać. Sekunda. Co trzeba? Gdzieś tutaj powinna leżeć moja nie. Stawieniu przy drugiej tam no. Przy lokacji. I co? Co? Province of Greece. If it's province of Greece, tak. Do rzeczy. To jest dość intymna kwestia. Spodni potrzebujesz, bo porwałeś. Jakie intymne, człowieku? Widać. Czekaj. Raz, 2, 3, 4, 5. Mam tutaj 4. Teraz będzie online pani, prawda? Jedna, ostatnia. Sesja F. Dwie będą. Dwie? Dwie. Mam nadzieję, że nic się więcej nie wysai. Bo my sesję E mamy, nie? F, no. Zdalna jest pani ostatnia Maria Szultes no. I trzecia jest pani Dorota Pedro. Też zdalna, tak? Tak, a mógłbyś... A to ja nie mam dwóch prezentacji na przykład. Okej, a mam inną prośbę. No. Ja cały czas na Bytniku drugim widzę zdjęcie tego gościa. No i co? Mógłbyś je... To weź mi pokazać ci? Tak, bo nie widzę, znaczy, no bo nie widzę tego. Pendrive mam. Jaki? Z czym? Łukasz coś pisał. A, to Michał. Michał, bo teraz jest przerwa, to tutaj jest jakiś spocik puszczony 40 minut, 37. To weź to. Tak, i teraz niech to lata na przerwie. Dobrze, a ja proszę spodnie, błagam. Już. Ile im zajmiecie się to?
Proszę bardzo, już nie masz.
Bardzo Ci dziękuję.
Dobra, kluczyki są tam, tak?
Tak,
A auto masz?
Takim najbardziej tutaj na końcu. Niebieska Skoda Fabia.
Jak się wychodzisz, to w lewo.
Wychodzisz i w prawo.
Okej. W prawo, niebieska Fabia, dobra. To całą torbę ci przyniosę.
Dobra.
Już kluczykami się tam nie chcę nosić.
Jakbyś przymknął te drzwi, to bym szybko się przebrał.
Jesteśmy na stanowisku firmy Ditech, która prezentuje showroom cyfryzacji procesów produkcyjnych. Czy mogłaby nam Pani powiedzieć coś więcej?
Tak, przedstawiamy tutaj proces produkcji spersonalizowanej karty. Etapy procesu wyglądają w ten sposób, że klient końcowy zamawia sobie kartę przez stronę internetową. Zamówienie to przekazywane jest do systemu ERP firmy produkcyjnej. Następnie po uwolnieniu zlecenia produkcyjnego przekazujemy informacje o zleceniu do naszych autorskich rozwiązań, czyli systemów MES.
Rozumiem, że karta tutaj jest tylko przykładem. To jest zastosowane, można to zastosować już w firmach, tak?
Tak.
Czy
Tak, oczywiście nasze rozwiązania MES-owe mamy już od kilku lat zainstalowane u klientów, którzy z tego korzystają.
osoby, które przyjdą do nas jutro zobaczyć, co się dzieje na konferencji, zobaczyć demonstratory, będą miały możliwość stworzenia sobie takiej zindywidualizowanej karty?
Tak, oczywiście. Mamy przygotowane 3 rodzaje kart, na które każdy może dodać indywidualną grafikę.
Tak, to jest prześmieszne.
Jesteśmy właśnie przy robocie sprzątającym firmy Agapit. Czy mógłby Pan powiedzieć coś o nim więcej, co się działa, gdzie ma najlepsze zastosowanie?
Więc jest to nasz najnowszy robot sprzątający. Myślę, że najlepsze zastosowania dla niego to są sklepy wielkopowierzchniowe jak supermarkety czy innego rodzaju miejsca użyteczności publicznej. Działa w bardzo prosty sposób, na mokro sprząta posadzkę, następnie wodę zbiera z sawą z tyłu do zbiornika wody brudnej, dojeżdża do stacji dokującej i tą wodę sobie opróżnia, tankuje nową i ładuje swoje baterie, więc jest w pełni autonomiczny.
Dziękuję. Czy moglibyśmy zobaczyć, jak on działa?
Jasne. Koło Cię tak przyjął?
Mam jeszcze pytanie. Mówi Pan, że w sklepach wielkopowierzchniowych na przykład mamy tam dużo klientów. Jak to wygląda, kiedy spotka na swojej drodze osobę jakąś?
W momencie, w którym mamy kontakt z człowiekiem, robot dynamicznie go omija lub staje i czeka, aż taki człowiek sobie po prostu zejdzie mu z drogi. Mamy również inne roboty sprzątające, które funkcja po prostu sprawia, że robot przystaje, prosi klienta o zejście z drogi, następnie jedzie sobie dalej.
Rozumiem. Czy macie Państwo inne roboty, bo ten sprząta tylko posadzki, on je tylko myje. Czy macie Państwo jakieś roboty odkurzające na przykład?
Oczywiście. Mamy roboty myjące, mamy roboty odkurzające, mamy roboty mopujące, więc te 3 tryby pracy mamy dostępne w naszych robotach. Mamy również robota dezynfekującego światłem UVC.
Jesteśmy na stanowisku firmy Audi Centrum Białystok Sieńko i Syn, który prezentuje Centrum Wirtualnej Konfiguracji Pojazdu. Czy mogłaby Pani powiedzieć coś o tym więcej? Czy ten system jest już dostępny u Państwa?
Tak jak najbardziej. System jest dostępny przy każdej wizycie u nas w salonie tak naprawdę. Dzięki temu systemowi każdy z klientów indywidualnie może zobaczyć na bieżąco, tak, jak dana konfiguracja jego wymarzonego modelu samochodu wygląda. Ponadto po takiej wizycie każdy z klientów dostaje swój automatycznie wygenerowany kod, dzięki któremu może jeszcze raz w spokoju obejrzeć swój samochód tak już w domowym zaciszu i zobaczyć po prostu, jak to auto wygląda.
Czy od dawna korzystacie Państwo już z tego systemu?
Tak, już od dłuższego czasu. System jest cały czas gdzieś tam doskonalony, jakby wirtualnie, tak. Staramy się też odzwierciedlać jak najwięcej szczegółów poprzez oczywiście zmianę koloru, stylistykę felg. Również oczywiście tak jakby do tapicerki, do struktury tapicerki, więc tak naprawdę to jest bardzo realne odzwierciedlenie tego, co faktycznie w samochodzie się dzieje.
Czy dzięki temu systemowi widzicie Państwo zmianę wśród wyborów klientów? Czy na przykład częściej wybierają inne kolory, których wcześniej nie mogli sobie wyobrazić? Tak musieli tylko zastanawiać się, jak to będzie wyglądało, teraz mogą zobaczyć. Czy to wpływa na wybory?
Tak, jak najbardziej. Jakby klient, który widzi tak naocznie, co się dzieje z tym samochodem, jak on fizycznie będzie wyglądał, podejmuje też decyzje do, wręcz tak powiem, zmiany koloru ze standardowego, tak, czyli gdzieś tam czarny, biały, czerwony, do kolorów, które są mniej tradycyjne, co się przekłada na to, że ten efekt wizualny końcowy, tak, takiego samochodu jest zupełnie inny i to auto wygląda autentycznie, bardzo indywidualnie i rzuca się w oczy.
Jesteśmy na stanowisku firmy PLM Expert, która prezentuje rozwiązania skierowane do firm chcących transformować się w kierunku 4.0. Czy mógłby Pan powiedzieć nam coś więcej, co można tutaj zrobić, z czego to się da?
Tak, oczywiście. To można tutaj też właśnie przyjść, porozmawiać pod względem tego, żeby poznać rozwiązanie. Również mamy filmiki, jak i możliwości tego, żeby zobaczyć samo oprogramowanie żywe, jak ono funkcjonuje. A z drugiej strony również zapraszamy do umówienia takiego pokazu już w firmie lub indywidualnie.
Czyli rozumiem, że ta oferta tego programu jest tutaj skierowana raczej do przedsiębiorstw, tak? One mogą przyjść, sprawdzić, jak takie oprogramowanie wygląda, jak się je wprowadza i porozmawiać z Państwem. Rozumiem, że te oprogramowania są zindywidualizowane też, tak? Dostosowane do przedsiębiorstw.
Jak najbardziej tak. Tutaj też możemy właśnie porozmawiać, one są zindywidualizowane i co najważniejsze, one też jest tak tworzone, żeby przedsiębiorca to, co już ma, mógł jak najbardziej z tego korzystać, tylko że my poszerzamy funkcjonalności po prostu tych rozwiązań, które ma, żeby móc wprowadzać już właśnie ten przemysł 4.0, automatyzację i cały cykl życia produktu.
Rozumiem, czyli dla firmy to nie będzie rewolucja, a ewolucja bardziej w kierunku, co prawdopodobnie zmniejszy też koszty i zmniejsza ryzyko, więc pewnie firmy chętniej chcą to wprowadzać.
Jak najbardziej. Tutaj też jest właśnie ta kontrola tych kosztów. Co najważniejsze, że przez automatyzację ta redukcja różnych kosztów związanych z błędami, z nieporozumieniami, czy po prostu z takimi zwykłymi błędami ludzkimi, które mogą się pojawiać, a takie błędy potrafią też być bardzo kosztowne dla różnych przedsiębiorców. No i redukcja różnych opóźnień, czyli jeżeli mamy kontrolę pod względem oprogramowania, wiemy już dzięki tym innym programom, co się dzieje, ale możemy wszystkie informacje zebrać w jednym miejscu, to mamy kontrolę już nad całą firmą. Wiemy, jakie są opóźnienia, gdzie mamy braki, jakich części brakuje, gdzie ludzie szybciej pracują, wolniej pracują, co musimy uzupełnić, więc to już jest pełna redukcja wszystkich elementów, które są tworzące, generujące dodatkowe koszty.
Brzmi to zdecydowanie jak ułatwienie procesu produkcyjnego i przede wszystkim zmniejszenie kosztów. Także dziękuję Panu bardzo i zapraszam wszystkich przedsiębiorców, którzy byliby zainteresowani wprowadzeniem takich procesów w swoich firmach. Jesteśmy na stanowisku firmy Pepper Fuchs, która prezentuje na naszej konferencji zminiaturyzowaną przemysłową linię transportową, która wykorzystuje elementy przemysłu 4.0. Czy mógłby powiedzieć Pan nam coś więcej na temat tego, co tutaj widzimy?
Tak, my jesteśmy elementem komponentów, które są w szerokiej skali wykorzystywane w tego typu rozwiązaniach. Mogą być to linie transportowe, mogą być to linie produkcyjne. Nasze komponenty są bazą przemysłu 4.0 w pełni wykorzystującą i pokazującą możliwości tego typu rozwiązań.
Rozumiem, że takie zastosowania są już dostępne w firmach.
Tak, zdecydowanie. Nasze rozwiązania istnieją w przemyśle od ponad 70 lat. Jesteśmy jednym z liderów rynku światowego i nasze produkty są szeroko stosowane w rozwiązaniach na całym świecie.
Czy przedsiębiorstwa, które chciałyby wprowadzić elementy takich linii u siebie, czy to jest duża inwestycja, czy mogą wykorzystać to, co już mają i rozwinąć to tylko?
Wszystko zależy od potrzeb oczywiście. Komponenty naszej firmy są stosowane w pojedynczych sztukach w tak zwanym utrzymaniu ruchu, czyli tam, gdzie nastąpi jakaś awaria, a także są stosowane w szerokich i globalnych, ogromnych projektach gdzie tego typu elementy są wykorzystywane w dziesiątkach, setkach, a także i tysiącach sztuk.
Czy prowadzicie Państwo współpracę z jakimiś firmami z województwa podlaskiego, czy jeszcze nie?
Tak, zdecydowanie. Rynek podlaski jest dla nas bardzo owocny. Współpracujemy tutaj zarówno z firmami końcowymi, czyli producentami urządzeń bazującymi na tego typu elementach, a także z dystrybutorami, którzy szeroko promują nasze rozwiązania.
Znajdujemy się na stanowisku firmy Procobot, która prezentuje przemysłowego robota współpracującego. Czy mógłby Pan powiedzieć coś o jego zastosowaniu?
Tak, na stanowisku znajduje się robot współpracujący Universal Robots. Jest to model UR16E o 16-kilogramowym udźwigu. Znajdują one zastosowanie w przemyśle, głównie w tym sektorze MŚP, czyli są dedykowane dla małych i średnich przedsiębiorstw, gdzie klasyczna duża robotyzacja nie mogła mieć miejsca, chociażby dlatego, że duży robot przemysłowy zajmuje dużo miejsca, wymaga specjalistycznej wiedzy do jego zaprogramowania. Roboty współpracujące charakteryzują się przede wszystkim łatwością programowania, dzięki czemu mniejsze i średnie firmy, które chcą mieć robota, mają już tą drogę otwartą, tak? Ponieważ robot jest mniejszy, robota łatwo zaprogramować, dzięki czemu nawet i te małe przedsiębiorstwa no mogą w tym momencie się już automatyzować czy robotyzować, nie są powiedzmy zamknięci czy odepchnięci na dalszy bok, ponieważ głównie robotyka była dedykowana dla tych większych przedsiębiorstw, w szczególności automotive.
Jeśli Państwo sprzedajecie takiego robota, czy te konsultacje związane z tym, jak go zaprogramować i później ewentualne wsparcie, czy to również Państwo oferujecie przedsiębiorstwom?
Oczywiście, no, poza tym, że jesteśmy firmą dystrybucyjną, posiadamy swój dział inżynieryjny, który świadczy różnego rodzaju usługi, czy to poprzez szkolenia, przez serwis czy wsparcie techniczne, zarówno to przedsprzedażowe, jak i posprzedażowe, tak? Czyli poza tym, że dostarczamy roboty, dostarczamy również wiedzę, jak takiego robota wdrożyć w przedsiębiorstwie, no bo tym się po prostu zajmujemy na co dzień.
Czy te roboty są uniwersalne, czy możecie je Państwo zindywidualizować, dostosować do konkretnych potrzeb przedsiębiorstwa?
Tak jak sama nazwa robota mówi, Universal Robots, tak, jest to robot uniwersalny, możemy go wykorzystywać przy różnego rodzaju aplikacjach. Software jest bardzo otwarty, nie jest to robot dedykowany stricte do jednej danej czynności, możemy go wykorzystać przy wielu. To wiąże się też z tym, że robot jest zasilany z sieci jednofazowej, czyli nie trzeba doprowadzać specjalnego zasilania. Robot jest odpowiednio lżejszy, dzięki czemu możemy go przenosić ze stanowiska na stanowisko. Dodatkowo łatwe programowanie umożliwia to, że możemy zaprogramować kilka różnych rodzajów operacji i przełączając te operacje w zależności od potrzeb.
Rozumiem, czyli w zasadzie jest uniwersalny, ale tak naprawdę można go dostosować, można jego funkcjonowanie dostosować do aktualnych potrzeb.
Tak, wszystko to zależy od nas, w zasadzie od użytkownika. To, co użytkownik chce osiągnąć, jaką aplikację chce sobie zrobotyzować, jakie usprawnienia chce wprowadzić na swojej produkcji, do tego robota możemy oczywiście dostosować. Jest to jeden z modeli Universal Robots. 2 dni temu w Monachium była premiera najnowszego modelu UR20, który jest już w stanie podnieść 20 kg na 1,70 m zasięgu. Także już też otwieramy się na te większe aplikacje, mam tu na myśli cięższe paczki, cięższe zadania wymagające większego udźwigu i większego zasięgu.
Firma Procobot na konferencji prezentuje także robokelnera, który jest dedykowany branży Horeca. Czy mógłby Pan powiedzieć coś więcej o działaniu tego robota?
Jasne, jak najbardziej. jest to oczywiście, tak najprościej mówiąc, robokelner. Ma on oczywiście tutaj pomagać kelnerom w obsłudze gości restauracyjnych. Czyli kelner w tym momencie sobie nakłada na daną taskę posiłek dla gościa i klika wybrany numer, tu akurat nie ma pokazanego stolika, klika, do którego stolika ma podjechać start i Bella automatycznie sama zawozi gościowi restauracji. Jest oczywiście też interaktywna, także jak najbardziej możemy ją pogłaskać, odezwie się do nas i no i tutaj ładnie się prezentuje.
Zdecydowanie. Czy jest możliwość, żeby ona pomyliła stoliki? One wcześniej muszą zostać zaprogramowane, tak?
Dokładnie. My ją uczymy, czyli na początku w restauracji pokazujemy jej, czyli prowadzimy ją za rączkę, pokazujemy jej całą mapę restauracji, programujemy każdy stolik. Jedynie kto mógł się pomylić, to kelner klikając nieodpowiedni stolik, no ale wiadomo, że gdyby gość dostał nie swój posiłek, to od razu by go zgłosił do kelnera. Gdyby się okazało, że klient weźmie nie swoje danie, to jak najbardziej Bella tutaj zgłosi to wszystko też komunikatem głosowym, że to nie jest danie przeznaczone dla tego stolika.
Rozumiem, czyli ona na każdym tym poziomie, na każdy poziom ma zgłoszony danie na konkretny stolik i wie, kiedy on powinien zostać podniesiony.
Dokładnie tak. Jeżeli zabierzemy, to albo możemy kliknąć guzik, który pokazuje już, że może wracać do punktu startowego, czyli do kuchni, albo ma oczywiście też wagę, jak zabierzemy tylko talerz, ona z automatu wraca do kuchni właśnie, żeby już obsłużyć kolejnego gościa. Jest jeszcze tylko dopowiem, jest to oczywiście takie ułatwienie dla kelnera, bo w momencie, kiedy Bella dostarcza posiłek, my w tym momencie możemy, nie wiem, obsłużyć kolejnego gościa, zebrać kolejne zamówienie, zebrać brudne naczynia, więc bardzo, bardzo pomaga właśnie w pracy w restauracji.
W restauracji goście nie tylko chodzą, nie tylko siedzą, przepraszam, ale również chodzą, poruszają się. Czy istnieje możliwość, że robot wpadnie na kogoś albo zatrzyma się i nie będzie w stanie jechać dalej, ponieważ ktoś będzie na jego drodze?
Bella jest wyposażona w masę czujników dookoła, więc jak najbardziej nie ma takiej możliwości, żeby ona w kogoś padła. Ktoś mógłby celowo w nią wejść, no ale jak najbardziej takie sytuacje są po prostu znikome i to się nie zdarza. W momencie, kiedy ma jakąś przeszkodę, czyli powiedzmy, tak jak my tutaj stoimy, ona by chciała tędy przejechać, bo tu ma swoją trasę, ona zgłosi do nas, że przepraszam, stoisz na mojej drodze, czy mógłbyś się przesunąć. No wiadomo, że goście restauracji nie są tacy uporczywi, którzy by przeszkadzali w pracy oczywiście kelnera, więc jak najbardziej każdy schodzi z drogi.
Dziękuję bardzo. Na naszej konferencji Bella również rozwozi drobne poczęstunki czy też napoje, którymi można się poczęstować. Dzień dobry, jesteśmy na konferencji Wyzwania w zarządzaniu w obliczu gospodarki 4.0 organizowanej przez Instytut Zarządzania w Białymstoku. Na konferencji oprócz takich tradycyjnych sesji konferencyjnych mamy również demonstratory technologii 4.0, które za chwilę będziecie mogli Państwo zobaczyć. Znajdujemy się na stanowisku Soldamatic. Jest to symulator spawania w rozszerzonej rzeczywistości. Czy mógłby nam Pan opowiedzieć o tym symulatorze?
Tak, oczywiście. Jest to symulator spawania, który wykorzystuje najnowszą technologię przemysłu 4.0, którą jest rozszerzona rzeczywistość. Wspomaga on w szkoleniu spawaczy. Jest wykorzystywany już na całym świecie, szczególnie w Niemczech i w innych krajach wschodu.
Czy w Polsce jest gdzieś jakoś wykorzystywany już do nauki, czy na razie to jest tylko prototyp?
W Polsce już w paru miejscach jest wprowadzony, lecz na razie w niewielkiej ilości. Bardzo popularny jest właśnie w Niemczech, jak wcześniej wspomniałem.
Dziękuję Panu bardzo. W związku z tym, gdybyście Państwo chcieli spróbować, wypróbować się w spawaniu, zapraszamy w piątek 24. Będziecie mogli Państwo skorzystać. Jesteśmy na stanowisku firmy Ditech, która prezentuje showroom cyfryzacji procesów produkcyjnych. Czy mogłaby nam Pani powiedzieć coś więcej?
Tak, przedstawiamy tutaj proces produkcji spersonalizowanej karty. Etapy procesu wyglądają w ten sposób, że klient końcowy zamawia sobie kartę przez stronę internetową. Zamówienie to przekazywane jest do systemu ERP firmy produkcyjnej. Następnie po uwolnieniu zlecenia produkcyjnego przekazujemy informacje o zleceniu do naszych autorskich rozwiązań, czyli systemów MES.
Rozumiem, że karta tutaj jest tylko przykładem. To jest zastosowane, można to zastosować już w firmach, tak? Czy...
Tak, oczywiście nasze rozwiązania MES-owe mamy już od kilku lat zainstalowane u klientów, którzy z tego korzystają.
Super. Osoby, które przyjdą do nas jutro zobaczyć, co się dzieje na konferencji, zobaczyć demonstratory, będą miały możliwość stworzenia sobie takiej zindywidualizowanej karty.
Tak, oczywiście. Mamy przygotowane 3 rodzaje kart, na które każdy może dodać indywidualną grafikę.
Tym się
Jesteśmy właśnie przy robocie sprzątającym firmy Agapit. Czy mógłby Pan powiedzieć coś o nim więcej, coś jak działa, gdzie ma najlepsze zastosowanie?
Więc jest to nasz najnowszy robot sprzątający. Myślę, że najlepsze zastosowania dla niego to są sklepy wielkopowierzchniowe jak supermarkety czy innego rodzaju miejsca użyteczności publicznej. Działa w bardzo prosty sposób. Na mokro sprząta posadzkę, następnie wodę zbiera z sawą z tyłu do zbiornika wody brudnej, dojeżdża do stacji dokującej i tą wodę sobie opróżnia, tankuje nową i ładuje swoje baterie, więc jest w pełni autonomiczny.
Dziękuję. Czy moglibyśmy zobaczyć, jak on działa?
Jasne.
Mam jeszcze pytanie. Mówi Pan, że w sklepach wielkopowierzchniowych na przykład mamy tam dużo klientów. Jak to wygląda, kiedy spotka na swojej drodze osobę jakąś?
W momencie, w którym mamy kontakt z człowiekiem, robot dynamicznie go omija lub staje i czeka, aż taki człowiek sobie po prostu zejdzie mu z drogi. Mamy również inne roboty sprzątające, które funkcja po prostu sprawia, że robot przystaje, prosi klienta o zejście z drogi, następnie jedzie sobie dalej.
Rozumiem. Czy macie Państwo inne roboty, bo ten sprząta tylko posadzki, on je tylko myje. Czy macie Państwo jakieś roboty odkurzające na przykład?
Oczywiście. Mamy roboty myjące, mamy roboty odkurzające, mamy roboty mopujące, więc te 3 tryby pracy mamy dostępne w naszych robotach. Mamy również robota dezynfekującego światłem UVC.
Zdarzało się na poprzedniej sesji, że panowie chodzili tutaj, to wygląda bardzo nieładnie. Także
I kamerka nie działa, tak? Nie. Dlaczego nie chodzisz tutaj?
bo brzydko światło.
Gdzie
lepiej stać? Ja bym schodziła.
3 minuty później jak ludzie wchodzą.
Jakby tutaj jest przestrzeń na zostało.
Czyli ja schodzę z tego. Może pan położyć na
Serdecznie na ostatniej, ale nie mniej ważnej niż
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our final, but not the least important session, the session that's about the challenges of Industry 4.0, Economy 4.0, Smart Cities, Smart Village, and strategies of regional development. So welcome to everybody who's here with us on the spot in Białystok, but also a warm welcome to everybody who's listening to us online. I'm very happy to have you here. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to hear 4 presentations. Unfortunately, we won't be able to have one of the presenters with us, and Mariusz Citkowski, one of the organizers, will tell us why that is. But let me introduce my fellow speakers today. The first presentation will be given by Wojciech Dziemianowicz from the University of Warsaw, who will tell us about the Economy 4.0 in the 4th generation of strategies of regional development of our Polish regions, voivodeships. Then we'll listen to a presentation by Mr. Athanasios Stavrakodis from the University of Ioannina in Greece, who'll tell us about business demographics and ICT technologies. That's an analysis of EU countries. Then we'll have an online presentation by Dr. Dorota Perło from the University of Białystok, who will tell us about the strategies of development of the Białystok functional area against all the challenges posed by Economy 4.0. Finally, we'll listen to Mrs. Maria Schulders from the University of Warsaw, who will tell us about co-creating smart cities, design thinking for 21st century urban planning. And now I'll give the floor to Dr. Mariusz Citkowski. Unfortunately, Dr. Sylwia Skrzypek-Achmed and Olena Iwaszko, our guests from the Ukraine, asked us to be excused because they have a meeting at 6 p.m. Because they are helping refugees from the Ukraine, and they have a very important meeting with a president of a foundation helping refugees from the Ukraine. Well, that's force majeure, so without further ado, let's start with the first presentation given by Wojciech Dziemianowicz from the University of Warsaw, Economy 4.0 against the strategies of voivodeship development. Thank you very much for your introduction, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy for the invitation to this conference, and I was really thinking hard about what kind of theme I would take for my presentation, and I decided to share my experiences in developing strategies, regional development, local development strategies, and all the strategies that are employed in our voivodeship are called strategies 4.0, 4th generation strategies. So these 4s in the conference of Industry 4.0, Economy 4.0, and 4th generation strategies go in 9, and that's something in my field because I'm working in foresight and in predictions. So this gives us a theme about what kind of discussions about planning in terms of Industry 4.0 on the level of voivodeships we have, and that's what I would like to share with you today. Based on our, to prepare for today's meetings, I reviewed 4 strategies that I was involved in, one of the for Warmia and Mazuria voivodeship, and the Greater Poland Wielkopolski voivodeship strategies. And for additional documentation, I also reviewed the strategy for Podkarpackie. And we know that the eastern part of the country, eastern part of Poland, based its development on the aviation valley. And the last voivodeship strategy I reviewed was Śląskie. So that was a very interesting documents, and I won't be having any slides today. I will be just speaking out of my mind. So I hope I kind of encouraged you to imagine where Podkarpackie, Śląskie, Warmińsko-Mazurskie is, and I will not be talking about Podlaskie, because even though I was a co-author of its strategy, and I know that most of you here know this strategy the best, and you know that the presence of Industry 4.0 with the support of Professor Plawgo is strongly reflected in that strategy. Unfortunately, he can't be with us here in this room, but I'm pretty sure that you can share examples of development strategies in Podlaskie during the discussion phase. I know that I have approximately 20 minutes for my presentation, and I believe that during conferences, it's very important to discuss. So I'll be trying to keep my remarks short, my thoughts short, so that we have a minute to discuss, a minute to talk. When I reviewed strategic documents, and these documents have to be prepared by the managers of a region, managers of a voivodeship, the government authorities, so they need to always include the business perspective. But business is also present in the development of a strategy. And I think it would be clear, and I think it is clear in fact, that while entrepreneurs develop this strategy to some extent, but I know that we haven't been talking about Economy 4.0, Industry 4.0 since yesterday, but that goes back to 2018, 2019, and at the time, it should be the best moment for Economy 4.0 to emerge. And business and local government bodies, well, are thinking, well, should we invest in that? And I think, and I respond to these queries that, well, of course, because it's written down, it's laid down in the strategies. Or are these provisions, strategic provisions, laid down because, well, they have to be there and we can just put anything on paper and that's it? But the question is, how will we actually be implementing it? And then we just say, well, yeah, just a technical comment about me not having any slides here.
Full responsibility, which is a
And if we talked about the implementation of different policies in terms of Economy 4.0, it started to appear in our strategies when we were actually obliged to implement solutions which forced us to make our agricultural policies more local, more territorial. And because this was a political approach, and because we thought about the vision of development of our regions and the direction that we want to take, we saw that we are at least half step behind others. And I'm really glad when I hear that, well, that's not the case, but I strongly believe that we are still losing this battle, and we are losing it because we don't have brave politicians. Ladies and gentlemen, it's safe to say that we're doing this and not that thing, because that's what the European Union wants us to do. But it's not the case that we're doing something in our way because that's what we want, because that's going to be good for the region. And this is unfortunately a link between politics, certain psychological aspects, and unfortunately I regret that we don't have true leadership, true leaders within us. Now, within our group. Now, the impact of external factors is also painful. Well, the European Union suggests something, we buy that idea because that's convenient. But on the other hand, there's also international corporations which also impact our development, impact our strategies. When we have organizations such as the European Union, which suggests certain solutions, and we want to do them, and we don't want to do them. But on the other hand, we have international corporations which suggest certain solutions, and as smaller regions, we are under this external pressure, and we need to decide how to react to these factors. Now, about companies and their pressure. Unfortunately, some companies have lost the faith that their involvement in their participation in developing strategic documents is not that sensible, is not that reasonable, because in our ecosystem in Poland, there are places where it's really hard to find businesses, find entrepreneurs who want to do something because, well, they've been cheated by the local government at one point, they've been cheated by the administration, and what's put down in strategies is unfortunately not the thing we really agreed upon. Now, when we talk about different forms of participation, we have to remember that participation is an element that could be used for promoting business by businessmen, and there are great companies which function in your international markets, but we are not aware about these companies. So perhaps it's a negative aspect of the social capital in our country, which reminds us that if you decide to go under the radar, you'll fly further. And
wspierać firmy, które potrzebują dynamiki, elastyczności itd. Natomiast mnie osobiście najbardziej załamuje albo martwi postawa polityków. To już na zakończenie. Zauważcie Państwo, że już powiedziałem, że nie ma tych dalekosiężnych wizji, ale też nie ma często odwagi. Ja testowałem ostatnio hasło drony w kilku miejscach w Polsce, i to w takich bardzo dobrych miejscach. Myślę, że jak nie tam, to gdzie? Pytanie do marszałka, do prezydenta dużego miasta, a co z dronami? No ale co z dronami, w jakim sensie, panie profesorze, drony to będą przewoziły coś? Ja mówię, nie, porozmawiajmy o komunikacji zbiorowej, latające samochody, latające autobusy. Ale o czym pan mówi? No ja mówię o tym, o czym za chwilę Paryż nam pokaże. Mam nadzieję, że...
have completely different ideas about public transport, and perhaps we should start thinking about these changes today. And we don't have brave politicians who would do that. And in Śląskie, in Silesia, there's a project called Drone Demonstrations, and that's a very interesting project which focuses, unfortunately, on transporting goods, but that's a good first step. However, I do believe that there's a lot of things that we could be doing, at least in theory, things that we could be doing step by step. And perhaps we shouldn't go step by step. Perhaps we should make a leap, make a jump, and we lack the bravery to do so. Now, we're still under external pressure, external factors, and just to conclude, I'm still a member of a team that develops developmental trends, perspectives for development, and we are analyzing different phenomena that actually have an impact on the situation in Poland. And we looked into automation, technology, and so on. We know that it's going to play a key role. It's going to be important. It's not treated by everyone in a positive manner, but we have to assume, even if somebody's scared of automation, interestingly, in some regions we see that automation will be helpful. It's not going to be a barrier by, for instance, replacing workers, but the population is decreasing, and automation is going to be a helpful factor for that. And in the theme of Economy 4.0, thank you very much for listening to me. I always take a very long time. Thank you very much. Everything was on time. It was fantastic listening to your speech, mainly because you're not only a scientist, a researcher, but you're also a practitioner, and that's where your knowledge comes from. Thank you very much for your presentation. We have a few minutes left because we are short one presentation. So perhaps I can ask our audience, perhaps anyone has some comments. We do have time for 2 short questions.
Mr. Athanasius, the floor is yours.
Dziękuję. Dziękuję. Dzień dobry, everybody. Unfortunately, my Polish is finished here. I cannot speak much more. Thank you very much for the organization of this conference. Thank you very much for the invitation I received, and I have also to congratulate both the faculty for organizing this conference and also the sponsor who took the wise decision to finance this conference. Okay, it was a very wise decision to bring me here. I have to confess that after listening to yesterday's lectures, I changed a bit the content of the presentation, okay? And I want to provoke you. So instead of speaking about EU, I will mostly speak about Podlaskie region, okay? Around EU, of course, okay? First thing I have to show you, ladies and gentlemen, is that some few things about business demographics, okay? Perhaps everybody know a little bit about population demographics. Okay, how much people live in Podlaskie region, in Poland, in Europe, etc., how many births, deaths we have, and so on. But we have to know that also business demographics is very important, okay? And I will show you why. By business demographics, we mean the things that the statistical offices around Europe and Eurostat measures about how many businesses exist, how many new business are registered, how many business are survive, what is the population of employees inside this business, etc., etc., etc. Here is, let's say, you see the map here, okay? Europe, instead of having only countries, has also regions, okay? Regions can be classified as NUTS 1, 2, or 3, depending on how small is the regions. Today we are going to speak about this NUTS 2 level, because it is the level that we have most of the data, okay? We don't need only countries, we need the regions, but if we go to NUTS 3, we have data, for example, for Poland, for Hungary, or for Italy as well, but not for other countries. Either for NUTS 2, we don't have all the countries of the EU. Now, this is a simple map, ladies and gentlemen, and tells you where business exists in Europe. Any kind of size, okay? So it can be self-employed people, people working in a small business, like 2, 3, 4 people inside one business, or even bigger, okay? I don't want you to mention where Podlaskie region is, but now I want to ask you, what region do you think Podlaskie is similar to? If the color is quite good, it's not perfect, but it's good, okay? Do you think that Podlaskie looks like other regions in Poland? Or there are other regions in Europe that are more similar to Podlaskie? It looks, but it isn't. Podlaskie is not in Poland. If we measure similarity, okay, pay attention, the index is harmonized to the population. So we divide, okay, the number of people and the number of business. So we count number of business per 1,000 inhabitants, okay? Because, you know, from region to region, population is not the same. So, now here, I think that you don't have the right version of the presentation. Here we talk about where businesses are born, okay? Pay attention, I forgot to mention that we speak about 2018, which is the latest data we have. Unfortunately, the flow of data are not in real time, so we do not know what happened yesterday or the year before, okay? Also, you see some regions that they are annotated. These are the top values, okay? So you have to know, for example, that Vilnius tops the list of regions in all Europe in order if you measure where business are born, okay? Now here you have where business die, okay? Which happens also to be in Vilnius, okay? Very close to Podlaskie region, okay? What do you think about it? Is it good or bad for Vilnius? For any region, it happens now to be the Vilnius in question, okay? It's good. having a big rate of dying business and boarding business, it means that your economy transforms quickly. If you have a region that no business are dying, but also no business are created, it means that the region remains relatively conservative. Okay. Here also we talk about the business size. Have in mind that Eurostat classifies the business in 3 categories, okay, in 3 classes. First class is those businesses that they have 0 employees. That means that they are self-employed people, okay. The second class is the small business that they have from 1 to 9 employees. Something like, for example, a small family-run restaurant, okay, or any type of another small business. And the other class, the big class, is those businesses that they have at least 10 employees. There are other classifications as well for having very large businesses, like more than 250 employees or more than 5,000 employees, etc. But here we put all together, okay. This map also shows you, it colors each region according to the percentage of each class inside the business environment of one region, okay? You see clearly here, and I think that the colors are different, that Podlaski region differs from all the rest of the Poland. And it's much similar, for example, to nearby Kaunas regions in Lithuania than any other kind of Poland. Basically, during 2018, according to Eurostat, here in Podlaski region, there were more self-employed people in business than in other regions of Poland. I don't know if you know that or not. Do you know this, Anya? No. That's why we study economy with data. Okay, yeah. That's why I'm saying that from some points of view, Podlaski, Voivodeship or region, yeah, it's not in Poland. It's somewhere else, yeah. Here also, yes, excuse me for a moment, I have to mention something. It is definitely that this version of the presentation is wrong. So I need my laptop for half a second. It's few things I have to say more. In order to show you the rest of the stuff, okay? So Anya, please, next to you, is this a HDMI? So please stop here because nothing changes, just it's some information that is missing. So we need 1 minute to readapt the presentation, okay? Take 1 minute. Yeah, but it's not so much. Yeah, yeah. It's not so much. Here is the story, okay. Yeah, merci. Now, this map now has a highlight, okay. If we count number of business per inhabitants in each region of Europe, okay, which other regions are similar to Podlaski? And as you see, there's no other region in Poland. Okay, your most similar regions lie in Bulgaria, in Hungary, and in Croatia. Okay. Or for example, if you could go to another map where businesses are born, here you are similar to Poland to some regions, okay? I think one is Łódź, the other could be Śląski or something like that, and the other one is Netherlands, okay? In order to have in mind what this map represents, okay, we calculate the number of businesses per inhabitants, etc., for all regions, and then we calculate which numbers are very close to the numbers that Podlaskie region has, okay? It's a measure of similarity, okay? Basically, we subtract numbers and we find the minimum absolute deviation. Yeah. Another thing is about where business die. Here, if you see what other regions of Podlaskie are similar to Podlaskie, you see that you are looking similar to Sweden, to Spain's to La Mancha region, for example, to Aosta de Valle in north of Italy, etc., etc. Nothing to relate with Poland. Here was employment now by size. Here you look like Poland, okay? Pay attention to what this map represents now. We count not number of business, but people that are employed in this business. Okay, because you know, we might have a big number of small businesses and small number of big businesses, okay? Or we might have the opposite. But what about the total employment? Here, yes, Podlaskie region looks like Poland, okay? Looks like most other regions in Western Europe, but not all Europe is the same. As you see, Spain, Italy, Baltics, etc., different from the other regions. Now the point comes more and more interested, okay? In order to have less maps and transmit less information and make the discussion more sparkle, here we split the number of businesses by size, okay? And we speak again about number of enterprises, total number of enterprises, but on the left side you see self-employed businesses, people that they work for themselves. In the middle is the small businesses from 1 to 9 employees. And on the right side is the big businesses, okay? And we count again total number of enterprises per 1,000 inhabitants, etc. What you see here now, that on the left side, you have some similarity with the region that I think it's north of Poznan, is Torun, I think. Bravo, bravo. Yeah. The other stuff is Slovenia and the Basque country in Spain, okay? If you can imagine, yes, you look like Spain. Yeah, the Basque country. On the middle size of business, you look like Netherlands and north of France. And on the big business, you look like a bit of Poland in Gdansk there. And also with, here is the region around Bucharest in Romania, not Bucharest city, the capital, but the region around it. And also this west type of Spain, again. So the point is that when we speak about regions, we should never focus in one country alone, okay? There is no country in Europe, okay, that has more than 5 regions. We don't speak about Cyprus, Malta, or Estonia, or something like that for bigger countries. Never focus on just one country if you speak about regional economics, okay? Now go to another metric about birth of enterprises, okay? Here, for self-employment, you look like Poland. Podlaskie region looks like Poland. For middle sizes, looks like Poland. But for bigger companies, for bigger enterprises, it's totally different than Poland. Okay, you look like Finland, Sweden, Sardinia in Italy, etc., etc. Why? Why can this happen? Very simply because of legislation. It's the type of business that people start by themselves depends a lot on the legislation and legal system that a country country has. And these systems are different from country to countries, okay? So people tend to behave similar in one country, okay? But bigger companies do not depend on the legislation system of one country. Because of international investments, because of capital flows, etc., they behave differently. And you have, if you study your big businesses here, you have to study not only Poland, in no way. And this, of course, is not about only Podlaskie region, okay? It's about all regions in Europe. So concerning the small businesses, you look like Poland. Concerning the big businesses, no, you look like Finland and Italy. The same happens again to death of business, okay? If you focus on small businesses, then you look like Poland. If you focus to bigger businesses, then death of businesses during 2018 brings Podlaskie region close to Sweden, to Romania, to Slovenia, etc. Another very interesting metric about business demographics is the survival, okay? Okay, you register a new business. How many years will this business survive, okay? And one crucial metric is to survive at least for 3 years. Have in mind that this data comes from Eurostat, and Eurostat is in compliance with EU policies, cohesion policies, etc. That means that in most regions we have this 2-year funding. Some businesses take funding for 2 years, and they measure how many of them survive for at least 1 year without having subsidies in their costs by EU money. Here is a very interesting thing, okay, looking to the small or medium companies and enterprises, you look like Poland, but going to bigger enterprises, only Lublin is very similar to Podlaskie region, something that we can expect, okay? But on the other hand, you look like Portugal, you look like Croatia again, etc., etc. Closing this presentation, I will tell you one thing why I do these things, okay? Here, the data and the numbers show you how much big correlation exists between GDP growth on a regional level, okay, and any of the 38 metrics that business demographics exist. It's not only, you know, total number of enterprises or births, deaths. There are many other indices, okay? So we program a computer and we study what is the correlation we have. You will see that the best correlation is not on the number of businesses, but on the persons employed, okay? So employment and GDP growth, okay, are very highly correlated. We know that this correlation exists for 60 years now in economics, okay? There is a law that is called the Kuhn law that connects unemployment or employment with GDP growth, okay? And recently we have published a nice work about that. The question now I have is, should we take into account unemployment per se, or should we look the business demographics that creates or destroys employment? So the question is why? Who is the real connection? Should we measure unemployment, or should we go and see what happens to business environment that affects unemployment or employment, okay? And this is, of course, a research question I have. I haven't finished it. I hope that next year I will be here. Next year I will be here to tell you the answer. All in all, ladies and gentlemen, if we study regions, we should never stay in one country. Okay, we should see the whole Europe as a whole. If you saw the maps, some regions were not present just because we don't have the data. And it's crucial that we have more recent data. Okay, so the statistical offices, Eurostat, etc., should provide us with more data. I'm here for your questions, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Dr. Athanasios, for a very interesting presentation and analysis of our region. Very inspiring. Musimy zrobić króciutką przerwę techniczną, znaczy mamy czas na kilka pytań. Jeżeli ktoś z Państwa...
And so, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very short technical break, and we have an opportunity to ask our speakers some questions. Perhaps we have some issues relating to entrepreneurship, running businesses in Podlaskie, in this region. So if there's any comments from our listeners, we're open to that. I don't think we have any questions to you right now, and I think
And jesteśmy gotowi na następną prezentację.
so, ladies and gentlemen, we are ready for our next presentation. This will be an online presentation, and I have the great pleasure to welcome Dr. Dorota Perło from the University of Białystok, who will give a talk about the developmental strategy of the Białystok functional area against the challenges posed by Economy 4.0. If we take a look at the strategy of development of Podlaskie, we wanted to bring some of the issues closer to you, to introduce you to some issues. And we've established a certain association that was developed in order to further our regional development. We have the city of Białystok, and that's the focal point of the Białystok functional area and the surrounding regions. And our functional area is approximately 1/3 of the population of the whole region. And it's a formula. And we've actually tried to implement this strategy in our regional development strategy in 2014, 2020, and to further cooperation between the city of Białystok and its surroundings. And I think we were successful in that respect. We've been kind of finishing up one of our strategies, and we are getting ready to implement our next strategy focusing on regional development. In terms of establishing our strategy or our development strategy, I have to say that this process was not really we need to make our job more formal in terms of our organizational structure. And we had the pleasure to work with Wojciech Dziemianowicz, who was the first speaker at this panel, and his team was one of the best supporters that we had. They offered a lot of different forms of support, and yes, we were able to implement different forms of strategies. We tried to identify the key needs of our region. We needed to diagnose those needs and prepare a concept for our strategy to develop its vision, its mission, establish certain direction of actions, including the location, financing, sources of finance, locating sources of financing for our strategy. And yes, so perhaps most of these elements needed to be approved to be implemented. When we talked about the strategy of the Białystok functional area, it's a territorial strategy, basically. So it goes in line with the requirements both posed by the Polish government and the European Union. And these strategies can have different forms. there are two options. It shows elements that are crucial for different implementation strategies, but we also have sublocal development strategies, and these includes integrated territorial development strategies within our concept. In the previous financial framework, 2014-2020, we've developed more strategies for focusing on the development of our functional area, and in the current financing scheme, we also tried to regroup the funding options to promote more local or sublocal projects. And most of the cities and towns within our functional area are also obligated to prepare similar documents for sublocal, superlocal development. And in terms of the strategies of superlocal development, we need to, of course, base our documents on specific diagnoses, specific things that we can recognize, and also we have functional and spatial structure models and recommendations and diagnosis in terms of shaping and establishing spatial policies and special strategic areas of intervention. And these are some elements that are required by our acts of law for our development. Of course, the managing institution for European funds is also playing a key role, especially when we take a look at the program, because it's supporting us with the areas that can be actually implemented within our strategies, and that allows us to consult these areas together with the managing institution, so that the document actually responds to the needs in our region and responds and goes in line with the financial capabilities of our region. And in our work that we've done, we were able to identify certain key areas. We had the economy of our functional area as well as its managing units. So we see components of Economy 4.0 in each area of our activity, and we can't really say that we've only put Economy 4.0 into the general economical concepts, but just to give you one short example, there's one area that we've identified, the population of the functional area, and Professor Bogusław Plawgo was one of the authors of this document, and we know that we want to support regional development in a way that this document can supplement other strategies. So it's going to include 9 different components on different development strategies for gminy or municipalities. Now I wanted to show you the instruments that we've developed to consult with experts, and these are quite simple surveys filled out by all the stakeholders, local stakeholders, and we've discussed them in expert FGIs, and now we're using these instruments to collect as much data as possible from many different fields. This shows you one of the areas that we've been focusing on. It's about the inhabitants of the functional area, and here Economy 4.0, well, it's present in almost all areas, and the strategic objective here is inhabitants, population open to the future. And one of the challenges here is to develop a ecosystem of the local ecosystem that is in line with demands, with the challenges of the labor market. And we've developed 4 main operational objectives, and we have objective number 1, it's competent population ready for Economy 4.0, for example. And within this strategic objective, we have 1 operational objective, so that's again competent population ready for Economy 4.0, and then we have several activities, several directions for actions which would ensure a proper development of an educational ecosystem within this scope. Of course, the process of developing the strategy, like I said in the beginning of my presentation, it does include the challenges posed by Economy 4.0, so we need to establish more capital, establish relations, because that's the key to our success, that's the key to the success of this process. And we're trying to develop similar strategies, similar networks of cooperation with other functional areas. And it's not only about voivodeships, about regions, but we also cooperate with national administration, local administration, European administration, and we're trying to establish cooperation with representatives of business, so that all these stakeholders, all this environment supports the preparation of our documents. Now, IT technologies, of course, makes this process more feasible. As you can see, this process is extremely complicated, but access to data is improving, and that's the basis of establishing good strategies and implementing them in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Dziękujemy bardzo pani profesor. Czy może jakieś pytania?
Well, thank you very much for your presentation. Are there any questions? Because that's a very good opportunity to ask them if you have any. So we don't have any questions to Professor Dorota Perło for her to her presentation, and now we can start the last presentation in this session. So we have Mrs. Maria with us, but we have to have a very short technical break to connect her. Professor Perry, are you still with us? Unfortunately, she had to disconnect. But there is another question to our speaker who is in the room with us.
Statistic data and the latest information we've got from 2018, in fact. Yes. And do you suppose that is really huge problem during the COVID time and at the moment Ukrainian, because when I look at these fact and figures, that I suppose the EU is a little bit blind at the moment. Do you agree, or and you see any possibility to how to improve this statistic system? Is possible in your opinion or not? Because in my opinion that is a really important factor. For example, we've got in cluster measurement the barometer of clusters, and in fact we delivered to our Marshall office data from May in June. The statistical analysis, and that is in my and also in our Marshall office opinion really useful tool.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Yeah, definitely. Definitely we are blind. We are blind, okay. We spent, I don't know, trillions of this EU recovery funding, etc., and we are not knowing, we do not know anything where this money go and for what purpose. Okay, in contrast, for example, in USA, where they have real-time data, sometimes after 1 day, okay, because they are connecting their banking system, okay. They know, for example, every week what is the spending with the cards around the businesses. They do not know only about the amount of businesses, they know amount the earning of businesses, okay. And of course, they can target their policies accordingly, okay. In some regions or in some countries of Europe, there are much better data. On pan-European level, we are blind. Okay, data came too late and not for everybody. For example, you saw the maps, we have no data about Germany. The biggest economy in Europe do not provide business, Greece as well. Okay, here we go. Greece as well, but okay, Greece is one thing, okay? It's 2% of the European economy, okay? But what is Germany? Yeah. Yes, we are blind, okay, yeah. If you see, for example, USA, where researchers have access to even weekly data,